So today, I guess we're talking about marriage. And the biggest, I guess, thing from the Protestants is Catholics worship Mary. And short answer is no, we don't. We honor and revere her. And they're like, well, why? Well, because she's the mother of God. It's like, okay, well, class over. There we go. It's as simple as that. But they think, you guys put too much stock in Mary and you pray to Mary, and they don't actually, if you say, Hail Mary, we're not praying to Mary, we're asking Mary to pray for us. And there's all sorts of evidence of that. Mary interceding, and we'll get to that in just a minute. The cool connection that the Catholics make that I don't think any other denomination makes, they might, I don't know, but they call Mary as the new Eve. Eve said no to God, and Mary said yes to God. And it's kind of a contrasting thing, and it kind of restarted the whole salvation thing, which is pretty cool. And like even in Genesis, they have this proto-evangelium, which pretty much means first gospel, Genesis 3:15, where right after the fall, he said, he will put enmity between you and the woman, and between your offspring and hers. They will strike at your head while you strike at their heel. He was talking to the serpent, basically saying that the offspring from the women are going to battle the serpent, going down to Jesus. And there's actually in Revelation, I think there's an image of her standing on a serpent, which is pretty cool. They don't actually say it's Mary in Revelations, but everybody just assumes it is. It is the Queen of Heaven. She's got a crown, and there's another. That's why they call it in the Sorrow for or one of the glorious mysteries. She's crowned the Queen of Heaven and Earth. The name Eve actually means mother of all things, and as Jesus was on the cross, he gave Mary to the blessed disciple, saying, behold your mother. That was John. So he kind of assumed that Mary's now the mother of all the church, basically, is where it went from. This is kind of a unique situation that I guess the Christianity has, where our God had the ability to create his own mother. So we say that Mary was created with full grace, no sin, because he had to have a pure vessel in order to come to us. So that's why Mary she still had a choice, and that's why they gave it to her. But she was full of grace, no sin at all, throughout her whole life. So you can say there's only two people that ever had no sin. I was talking to a priest down in Evansville, and it was funny because he was talking about that story where the adulterer, they were about ready to stone her, and Jesus walks up, he writes in the dirt and says, "He who with no sin cast the first stone," and then from the back a stone comes flying, and Jesus goes, "Mom, I'm trying to make a point." Yeah, he said he gave that, or said that to a bunch of grade schoolers and they didn't get it. But I couldn't imagine. She was like 15 when she gave birth. Yeah. And she knew who Jesus was. Like the whole time she had to raise this little kid, but she still had those motherly instincts. You can tell when she lost him at the temple, she was freaking out for 3 days until they found him. It was pretty. And there's a cool picture or cool stained glass thing at the cathedral showing that. And you see Mary there, but then you see Joseph next to her saying, "There he is, he's fine." The wedding of Cana is where basically we get the first intercession from Mary. You know, I'm sure most people know that story. The couple was running out of wine, and instead of the couple going to Jesus, they went to Mary, and Mary went to Jesus. And so that Mary interceded for that couple to make things happen, which was always an interesting thing. But I love that story because, you know, she goes to Jesus, like, they're running out of wine, and he's like, my time has not yet come. And like any good Jewish mother that I've ever known or heard of, she completely ignores him and goes to the servants and basically tells them, this is what's going to happen. It's pretty cool. He doesn't ever agree to it until Mary went to the servant and said, do as what he says. And then his whole ministry started. So she kick-started the whole ministry. And she knew what was going to happen. So she knew when she started the ministry where the end date was and what was going to happen. So that had taken a lot of courage for her to do that, knowing what was going to happen to her son. Have you guys ever seen that the show The Chosen? You should look it up. It's called The Chosen. It's free on mobile devices, I think. And it's basically the life of Jesus. They have one season down, and I think the last episode of the first season is the wedding at Cana, and it is just incredibly detailed on how they do it. It is a really, really good show, and I highly suggest anybody watch it.
Morning.
Hello.
How are you all doing?
Good.
Good. Good. Yeah, so you have a break, a little break.
Yes, thank you.
After Christmas, so yeah, that's great. Yeah, we come back to school on the 4th also, so. Yeah.
Great little Christmas.
And I think maybe after Christmas, my sister Carol will be taking Damien just to teach him about reconciliation in Eucharist.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Okay. How are you doing, Robert?
I'm good, you?
Good. Thank you.
Just talking about the wedding at Cana.
Oh, yeah, the wedding at Cana.
Have you seen that show, The Chosen?
No, I haven't.
Oh, you should.
Is it good?
It's really good. They just got the funding for the second season, so I think they're starting to film that. The first season, I think it's like 12 episodes maybe, but they're about an hour long, and it's incredibly well done.
Really?
It depicts, you know, Jesus' life, but it's
The Chosen, yeah.
like it's Paul seems to be the main character of the
Oh,
whole thing,
uh-huh.
and I just like how they portray the apostles, and Paul's the kind of guy who's ready to beat up anybody.
Yeah.
Matthew's the shy tax collector who was not very well liked by anybody, even the apostles at first, which was pretty incredible. But the episode where they do the wedding at Cana is pretty incredible. Because they start the whole wedding, you know, it's got Mary and her friend planning the wedding and all this stuff, and then at the end when they run out of wine, and it's just I like how they portray like the love between Mary and Jesus, because she thanks Jesus for doing what he did, and it was just really, really cool.
That's neat. I'll have to watch that. I don't have Netflix, so it's probably somewhere in the video stores, huh?
Yeah, you have to there's an app on a phone.
there's
That's how
an
I
app.
watched it.
Okay.
And it's free.
Okay.
You can buy the DVD and stuff like that, but that's how I was able to watch it. It's this, you know, the Chosen app, and you can watch each episode. They were doing it on Facebook like once a week. They'd air an episode, but I don't think they're doing that anymore. But it was pretty incredible series. Yeah. Then another movie just came out, Fatima. Has anybody watched that one yet?
Never watched that.
That is incredible. The story of the apparitions of Fatima. It was really, really cool. 70,000 people witnessed that miracle. So you can't deny 70,000 people.
Yeah, that's right, yeah. They say that one's very well done. You know, there was an older film which I have seen, but this one they said is very well done.
It is. It was incredible. They did a good job with the 3 little kids and Mary there, and it was really good. And there's the whole controversy, you know, the mayor of the town had to deal with it and what he had to deal with, and then locking the kids up, and that didn't help, so.
Yeah, it was kind of like Our Lady of Guadalupe. Remember Juan Diego? He kept going to the bishop, you know, and the bishop wouldn't believe him until finally the miracle happened with the cloak. But
Right, and then he didn't even know that there was something in the cloak, till
Yeah.
they went up with the roses, and then they saw it, it was like, oh, there's something there. And
yeah,
it's incredible that thing still, you can go and see it, and the tests they've done, there's no ink, no dyes, no nothing on that thing.
yeah, my sister Carol has been in Mexico and she went to see that. She said it's very interesting because there are so many people there all the time. They have not an escalator, but one of these rollers, and it goes real slow, and it goes around it.
Oh, nice. I guess that keeps the traffic going.
Yeah, it keeps the traffic going. Yeah. And she was saying that many of the people go on their hands and knees to the Blessed Mother there. From the outside of the church all the way up to it. She said she was there one day watching that. Yeah, that's beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah, so many different apparitions. I don't know. Do you know how many there've been? Like documented, like approved apparitions?
No. I
Dozens,
think
I
Fatima and Lourdes are the ones approved by the church.
Yeah, they're the big ones. Yep.
Yeah. And then there have been other ones, but I don't think the church has officially declared them like they did Fatima and Lourdes. But it's the people's experience, you know? It's what the people have experienced. Yeah?
Yeah, I don't know much about the Lord's Lord's apparition. I do like the Fatima one. I know the Knights of Columbus, you know, the founder just got beatified.
Yes.
He's now Blessed Father McGivney. And the latest miracle he recognized, a family went to Fatima to pray to Father McGivney, and the miracle was on the way back from Portugal is when it happened. So it was pretty crazy.
Yeah.
My boss just went and saw that family last week down in Kentucky.
Oh, really?
And he's known them for 10 years, and
Oh, my
that's
gosh.
pretty incredible.
That's great. It's great.
Yeah, he's got 2 more miracles being investigated, and if one of those gets approved, they'll recognize him as a saint, which would be nice for the Knights of Columbus.
That'd be great for the Knights of Columbus, yeah?
Oh yeah, it's just American priest. He's the first American priest to be
Yes.
a saint.
Yeah, that's great. Well, if I don't see you, you all have a blessed Christmas.
You too.
Christmas.
Thank you. Merry Christmas.
Hopefully a better 2021
Yes,
Pray, yes.
than we've had for 2020.
it's
But
off to a good start. We have a vaccine.
I know,
It's
that's
going
what I
well
said.
so far. So, except for
I saw the 3rd vaccine came out this morning to
Oh,
be
cool.
shipped. Yeah, those are all good things and blessings, huh? We really have to thank our scientists. Oh man, you think of them working in those labs for how long to
Oh yeah,
develop it.
they've been working hard. That's for
They've
sure.
been working hard, is right.
Think those
so-
companies wanted to be the first one to come out with the vaccine.
Yep. Yeah, so hopefully I might see some of you in church over Christmas, depending on which mass we all go to.
Yeah, I'll be at the 10 p.m. one.
10.
Yep.
I'm gonna try and get there. If it's too full, I'll go back home because I have to go to the 3 in the gym. You know, so.
Sister, I have a question. The one that they invited us for the children, the 3 p.m. It says the McCormick place.
Yes, it's the gym.
Where is that?
Well, you know where the church is?
In the cathedral?
Yes, the cathedral. It's straight across. It's at McCormick Center on
Okay.
the building.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
I will be there. We will, God willing, be there.
Okay. Okay, well, I'll be there with Father Carl.
All right, sister. Have a great one.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks.
We're going to be recording the music from the 10 p.m. one and putting that together.
Oh,
for
are you? Yeah, that'll be nice. They have carols at 9:30, I think, huh?
Yeah, I asked Richard, I was like, which match should I go to get the best music? He said 10 p.m. I'm like,
10
okay.
p.m. Yeah. Okay, we'll see you all. Have a
Good to see
blessed
you.
Christmas.
Have a great Christmas.
Thank you.
road. So then we get to the rosary, which I like these little finger things that you can carry them around. This is a traditional rosary. I got a metal one because I kept breaking them. So I got a metal rosary. But they come in all different materials. You can actually get them on the Vatican's website from wood from Israel, which is actually pretty cool. But yeah, I have that metal one. I keep breaking them. I don't know why I keep breaking them. You'll see friars and nuns have them on their habits. They're like that long. Dominicans have a full rosary. They have 20 decades on theirs that hang down, which I don't know. It takes a lot of patience to go through an entire rosary in one day, through all 20 decades. That's pretty incredible. The history of the rosary is a little bit clouded. Nobody really knows how it started. The legend is that St. Dominic was given the rosary by Mary, because he was having some trouble with some heresies, and Mary said, preach my rosary, and he did, and it went really well, but a lot of people don't think that's an actually accurate story. He did preach the rosary, but they're not sure if it was a vision from Mary. That story came about like 50 years after his death. So I was like, why didn't it come up while he was alive? So it was one of those. But the monks at the time were doing the Liturgy of the Hours, which is they pray all 150 psalms over the course of a month. And somebody came up with these beads to help them imitate that. So there was probably what they think is that it was either they said 150 Jesus prayers or 150 Our Fathers, and then over time it evolved into what we have now. But the rosary has been around for ever, like 1300s when they really started doing it. They kind of stole the beads supposedly from the Muslims. Muslims use beads. So it got really, really big. It was like, hey, we can use beads too. And it's a really easy way to count your prayers. It works. Has anybody heard of the Battle of Lepanto? It was a massive naval battle from the Ottoman Turks. They were wanting to invade Rome. The leader of that army, his goal was to put a turban on the Pope's head and a little moon thing on St. Peter's. He was ready to do it. He was ready to go. And the Christian nations kind of formed together and wanted to stop this massive army. And they did it at the Battle of Lepanto. But the Muslims vastly outnumbered the Christians. I just looked up the numbers. They had 84,000 troops and the Christians had 60,000 troops. This was a naval battle, and Pope Pius V, for like days before this battle, had everybody in Rome and sent it out to everybody, and everybody pray the rosary for victory. And the second they won, the Pope Pius knew in Rome. He said, we have to celebrate victory. And it took 2 weeks to get official word, but he knew 2 weeks before they got there. That was October 7th, and even now we celebrate October 7th as the Feast of the Rosary. It was originally called the Lady of Our Victory, but they changed it to Feast of the Rosary. But it was, the Muslims never recovered from that, and they never left Turkey. So that's a pretty cool stopping point there. But they always associate the Rosary as winning that battle. They were so vastly outnumbered, and they ended up winning. I saw like the casualty reports, and the Muslims had like 300 ships, and almost all of them sunk, whereas the Christians only lost like half of theirs. It's pretty incredible. Like, I wish somebody would make a movie about that one. That would be a pretty cool movie. And then when we go through the mysteries, the cool thing about the Rosary is somebody I heard called it like the Bible's prayer. Because you pretty much go through like the whole New Testament if you go through all 20 mysteries. Because you can go, start from baptism or from the Nativity, even before then, with the Annunciation. Speaking of the Annunciation, the Hail Mary prayer, starts, Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Does anybody know where that comes from?
when the angel came down.
Gabriel said those words. And then after that is, blessed are you amongst women, blessed is the fruit of thy womb. Elizabeth said that to Mary. So when Protestants say your prayers are biblical, they literally, word for word, come from the Bible.
Yeah.
And then the second half is when we're asking Mary to pray for us. And it's like, well, if the Hail Mary is about Mary, it's like, well, the very middle word is Jesus. It's like the whole prayer hangs on Jesus. So it's not about Mary, it's about Jesus. And everything we do goes back to pointing towards our Lord.
Is there a reason why they don't want to acknowledge Mary? Because, I mean, without Mary accepting, the fact that she was going to give birth to Jesus and this was going to be done, speaking of a mom perspective, knowing that you're going to be giving up your only son and you know what's going to happen. That's a big sacrifice.
It really is, and I have no idea why Protestants, they're so against it. I think that they're also against praying to saints too. So I think when we say we're praying, I think that they say, oh, you're praying, you're worshiping. It's like, no. And I've had a couple Protestant friends, and I was like, well, do you ask your friends to pray for you? Yeah. What about your dead grandmother? Yeah. Then what's the difference? Like, you're doing the exact same thing we're doing. We just do it in a more formal way. We recognize the saints that we recognize that are in heaven and they can intercede on us. There's biblical evidence and revelations, whereas the saints bring the prayers to God. So it's there. I don't know. I don't understand some of these Protestant views, but I haven't looked much into it. So. I'm sure they have a reason, and it's probably a logical one, but it's one of those that makes sense to you, but doesn't make sense to anybody else. Even the early church, like the extreme early church in the 1st and 2nd century, they all believed in Mary and believed in the Mother of God and called her the new Eve, and we have writings from some of these early people about they had such a high reverence for Mary. I wish somebody had recorded Mary's life after the crucifixion, because I think that would have been interesting. We know she was assumed into heaven, body and soul, so she didn't die per se, but she was brought into heaven. But it would be interesting to see how her life played out afterwards and what she did.
Mm-hmm.
The rosary was originally just the first 3 groups of mysteries: joyful, sorrowful, and glorious. It was Pope John Paul II that introduced the luminous mysteries. He was a huge person with the rosary. He loved the rosary. Even Pope Benedict XVI, he loved the rosary, although he said that he doesn't always have time to do it all every day. So he'll do one decade, and then like maybe a couple hours later, he'll do another. He does it throughout the day, but Paul II, he was such a huge advocate of the rosary. And it was, 2002 is when he came out with his apostolic letter, Rosarium Virginis Mary, I can't pronounce Latin. If you want to ever read anything that really talks hugely spiritually about the rosary, that apostolic letter is it. I've only read parts of it, but it is incredible what he talks about the rosary. He dedicated the year 2002 to like 2003 as the year of the rosary, and it was a huge thing. They added the new mysteries, which I like the new mysteries. I don't know why they weren't there to begin with, but they were. Now we have our 4 mysteries. I wonder if somebody will add more mysteries, but I don't know what else they could add. I don't really have much of anything else unless anybody's got any questions.
I think it's interesting to know that I know there's a bunch of evidence that if you cite it and actually read through the Bible, it actually does reveal to us that it is preparing us for the way of life through the Catholic Church. And I was just thinking about it where Sandra had the question about why, other denominations outside of the Catholic Church don't recognize it. And I think it's because it's not a genuine practice. I know that they have a faith in Jesus, and that's, they're like halfway there, which is,
Right, and that's why we call Protestants our brothers and sisters in Christ.
Right.
You're right, they're almost there.
they're almost there.
Yeah, and they have good hearts, and they do, they mean well, but you're one step close,
Right, it's just that, it's like, whatever it is, personally or whatever, it's like just that extra leap of faith, because that's where Mary comes in, our Blessed Mother, and I come to see that, that's where the Holy Spirit really takes over for us in our faith and our journey through faith in the sacraments that Almighty God gave us. And I think maybe that's, one component of why they might not believe in her or want to acknowledge her as such. But yeah, we don't worship her. It's just, like you had said, we come to acknowledge her and her role in our lives, because I agree. Mary received Jesus as the new manna from heaven.
Mm-hmm.
She was the first one to receive him, literally. And if anything, not that Mary is limited to this title, but she's definitely an example of how Catholics should be.
Absolutely.
So
Yeah, she's also got another, title. They call her the first disciple.
Yeah.
Even before she was pregnant, she was his disciple, and she said yes, and let your will be done. I'm the handmaiden of the Lord, and then she, all the generations will call me blessed, and we do. It's
Absolutely.
I couldn't imagine making that decision as an early teenager, 14, 15, 16. That would be incredible. And then they're doing a lot more stuff with Joseph. They're actually starting to. It's interesting because we don't have any words from Joseph in the Bible, not a single word. But you can tell what kind of character he is. And they're starting to do a lot more consecration to Joseph's things coming out. I even saw things where they have a prayers to Joseph that uses the rosary. I haven't looked into it. It's actually an interesting thing though. But even at the very beginning when he found out that she was pregnant, by law he could have had her stoned to death. He didn't. He wanted to preserve her, protect her, and go quietly. And I don't think that in the New Testament, at least, there's nobody that's been visited in their dreams by angels more than Joseph. I think it's like 3 or 4 times angel visited him in his dreams and said, you need to do this. And he did it, without question.
Certainly.
Go to Egypt. All right, let's go. We're going to Egypt. So, all right, you can go back. All right, let's go back.
Yeah, it would be interesting to see what happened with them afterwards too, Mary and Joseph. Do they say?
They just, interesting, because they're not sure. I've heard many different theories on, because why isn't Joseph anywhere in the Gospels talking about Jesus? Even when he was in Nazareth, why wasn't Joseph there? They think it's because he had died by then. And the theory is Joseph, and they talk about brothers and sisters of Jesus. They think those were stepbrothers from Joseph from an earlier marriage. That's a theory. That Joseph was an older man, and one reason why he was marrying Mary is so that he could protect her and keep her safe and provide for her, even though she was so much younger. That's just one theory. It's not like an actual dogmatic teaching. Then the brothers and sisters of Jesus, another theory is that they were cousins because they didn't have a word for cousin in the Greek. So that was all the same word and stuff.
Wow.
Then some of the Protestant religions go crazy with that. So, brothers and sisters, Mary wasn't a virgin. It says it right there. That's not quite what that means.
Yeah, a lot of the early Protestant fathers, including Martin Luther, John Calvin, and John Wesley, I think, they all loved Mary.
Absolutely. They're huge Marian devotions.
Yeah, they did. Even though they were separating themselves, they actually acknowledged her.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a line that goes, Joseph did not have any relations with Mary until the birth or something like that. And people are like, well, that assumes afterwards, she lost her virginity. Like, that doesn't necessarily mean that. Until doesn't say that it changed afterwards. Like, same thing as like, we're parted or we're joined together until death. It doesn't mean after death you're not part, it's just a word that doesn't necessarily mean things changed after that event. But they say, oh, it does. And there's that Dan Brown book, The Vinci Code.
Oh,
Yeah, it's a complete work of fiction. And it's a fiction book. It's an interesting book. It's an interesting concept. I watched the movie and I was entertained, but it's Mary's other children with Joseph and their lineage. But
isn't in the Da Vinci Code also when they talk about Mary Magdalene being with Jesus or something like
Yep.
that?
That's another theory, but she was just a disciple along with the other ones. And
Yeah, but she was grateful. I'm pretty sure knowing that she was having stones thrown at her and Jesus coming to her. Like, I believe she knew, she felt it. It was her discernment. We all give it discernment.
I also heard a theory that woman, that adulterer that they were going to stone, was Mary Magdalene.
Yes,
It doesn't say that anywhere in the Bible, but I heard that was the theory.
That's what I thought. That's what it was too. Because in this movie, it's in Spanish, but they would play it every time, like during Holy Week or sometimes Christmas, and it's like almost like what's the movie that you call?
The one that I saw, Jesus of Nazareth.
Yes, it's like Jesus in Nazareth, but it goes from when he was born. Well, from right at the beginning, when the angel comes and speaks to Mary, all the way up to when Jesus is crucified. And in that one, they did show us Mary Magdalene getting the stones thrown at her.
Makes sense. The theories are sound there.
Yeah, but in the Da Vinci Code, they make it seem as Mary Magdalene and Jesus were a couple or something like that.
Right, and if you think about it, and I can understand that kind of logic too, because Jesus was considered a Jewish rabbi, and Jewish rabbis were expected to marry, and it was just what was expected in that culture, but Jesus wasn't promoting the Jewish faith. He was proclaiming the kingdom of God. There was a complete, huge difference in whether or not he, his intention was for people to remain celibate or not. I mean, he didn't have time for it. Why, if he was a little bit busy? So it's just, some of the disciples were married. Paul was married, so it's just, nothing wrong with being married, but we just know that Jesus wasn't married.
Right.
I know a lot of the problems with, like, purgatory is another thing that Protestants have an issue with, and it's hard to argue with the Protestants over purgatory because the book in the Old Testament that Catholics used to promote it, the Protestants took out. So it's like, it's in the Bible, not our Bible. Well, that's your problem. And it's an interesting reason why the Bibles are different. We have extra books because back in Jesus' time, they translated all of the Hebrew Bibles into Greek. They call this the Septuagint. It means 70 something, because it took like 70 people to do it. And that's what Hebrew scriptures were around in the year 1. So those are what we know, that if Jesus were to study Hebrew scriptures, this is what he studied. When the Christians around the year 400 or so were coming up with our canon of books, the Jewish religion was doing the exact same thing. And they took out those books. So when Martin Luther was going through his things, he said, well, if the Jewish are not recognizing these as scripture, we shouldn't either. So that's why he took them out. But we leave them in because this is what Jesus studied. We know that this was around. If they were to, if he studied it, which we know he did, this is what he would have studied.
Interesting.
quicker than I thought it was gonna last.
Yeah.
Which set of mysteries do you particularly get more in, like, I guess, I don't even want to say interested in, but I guess which one do you follow a little bit more devoutly, I guess? It speaks to you a little more.
The luminous mysteries I do highly enjoy because a lot of that feels like it's more grounded in the church. You have the baptism, and that's one of our sacraments. Then you have the wedding feast. That's another one of our sacraments, and that's two of the big ones. And I know, and I wish so badly that Catholic divorce numbers were different than national divorce numbers, but they're not. They're right along with everybody else. But it seems like Catholics, when they get married, they have to. It's not just, hey, priest, will you marry us? It's, yeah, we'll marry you, but you have to go through a year of pre-Cana classes in order to do it. We take everything so seriously. And then the preaching of the kingdom, that's where it started. And I could just imagine, my dad asked me one time, he's like, if you could go back into history at any point in time, where would you go? I'd be like, I'd be in the back of the crowd on the Sermon on the Mount and just sit there and watch. That would be incredible. Then there's the Transfiguration. It's just, then you have the Eucharist. Those four mysteries are incredible. I'm so glad that St. John Paul II put those in there. The sorrowful mysteries, we seem to pray more because all throughout Lent, I know it's got the days in the back on what days you do that, but through Lent, you're not supposed to do anything other than sorrowful mysteries. So it's seem to get more experience with those.
Wow, I did not know that. That's pretty heavy.
But yeah, it's just to prepare you to, for Lent all the way through Easter. And yeah, I was just looking at the Knight's website of what things I can order because I needed some, more paperwork, and I saw these on there. I'm like, I'm gonna order a whole bunch of these.
Yeah, no, thank you. Yeah, these are great.
The cathedral they don't do it because of COVID, but right before Mass they'd say a rosary. They'd have somebody lead it, and the half hour right before Mass, on every Mass, somebody would have a rosary going. But because of COVID, they don't do it. COVID just ruined everything.
Yes, indeed. Changed so much. I'm just so happy the churches are able to open.
Oh, I know. I'm really glad that the bishops of Illinois and the governor's office, they all came up with a separate agreement. Like, we'll do this, but we'll be careful. Don't shut us down. People need the Eucharist. And I was really happy in New York. They tried to do something similar. They tried to enact all this stuff. And the Jewish congregation and the Catholic congregation, they got together and won their case in the New York Supreme Court.
Wow.
They said, we can't, people need this this is like their bread. This is their, they need it to live. And they made a big deal about it and they won. So, pretty cool case of interfaith working together.
Yes, in Chicago, when we were looking at the news, we saw that the mayor, because initially when we were over there during the whole shutdown and stuff, we weren't obviously allowed to go to church. The churches were closed, so when they started opening, Mitch was one of the first, few that started volunteering so that he can be used as an usher, help with the sanitizing and things like that. And then the mayor apparently she was very, impressed by the Catholic Church and how they did things. So she then decided to say that there's no need for anything for the Catholic Church to change. We don't need to close it because now they close the bars now. Certain things have to close at certain times and things like that.
Yep. I think people are limited to 10 people in gatherings.
Yes, and then everything is closed by 9 o'clock.
Yep.
So, but luckily they didn't do that with the church. They said let the church do its thing because they actually made a great example of how we should be how we should be acting and doing things.
Well, it's that second greatest commandment is love your neighbor as you love yourself. So we are going to do everything we can to protect ourselves and each other. And I know the church doesn't want any kind of bad press because we've already had a lot of bad press. We don't need any more bad press.
Right.
And I hate to say it, but yeah, a lot of these reporters and journalisms, they will use anything to jump down the Catholics. You know, they have one case in this church and they'll jump on it like, look how bad that is. They have one case. Really?
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of people out there just trying to get ready to say, oh, look what happened here. This church here had this happen. Yeah.
I was real nervous when all the schools closed except for the Catholic schools. They all still continue to go to school. And I was like, you guys are setting yourself up for, if one Catholic school has an outbreak, it's going to be in every news station.
Yeah.
But that hasn't happened, so.
Indeed.
Well, just last week, I think it was, in Manhattan, a man shot outside of St. John, the Divine, and the cathedral. Luckily, he wasn't able to hurt anyone.
Oh, jeez.
But he shot like 15 rounds in the sky, and he kept yelling like, "Kill me, kill me!" And so the police.
Oh, so he was looking for a suicide by cop, it sounded like.
Well, what's crazy on that, I feel, is that the stuff that he was found with it looked like it was harm. He was there for intentions to harm. He had a gasoline can, knives, 2 guns, fully loaded magazines. What else did he have? I think he had ropes,
Oh, wow.
gloves, and the Bible. And he
One of
went.
these things is not like the other.
He went to the church, and I feel personally like something didn't allow, maybe the Bible didn't allow him to go in, and that's when he just yelled out, because
Yes, you're right.
he had an
Something,
intention. It wasn't like if he wanted suicide by cop, I would think he would just need the gun and start shooting, saying, "Kill me, kill me, kill me."
right.
But he went with a lot of things, planning on to doing something. Yeah, that man had and unfortunately he was Dominican too. We were just saying that because we're from the Dominican Republic, my mom is, so he was also Dominican. And he went, when he got right to the front, he didn't even get inside. And he luckily did not kill anyone, did not harm anyone. He was the one that ended up getting killed. But the stuff that he was found with, to me, just like, I don't know, it just kind of got me like a little, with my hair behind my back, a little stand up, because he went with the purpose of harming. He did.
Oh, yeah, there's no doubt. If he had that much stuff, he was looking to destroy some property or hurt somebody.
Exactly, and he could not. He didn't. The God did not allow him in that church. He couldn't get in. So he was definitely taken out, and I'm just so happy because when we were in Chicago, we had a scare. We used to go to St. Hyacinth Basilica, and when we were there, we found out that someone did try to extort the church. They asked for money, and they said
They sent an email to the
yes,
church.
Oh,
and if they didn't send the money, if they didn't give the money, they would come to the church and shoot everyone. And
This
they
was
did that.
before COVID.
Yeah, this is right before COVID. It was very scary, and we never ever had an issue like that. But we found out that happened. Luckily, the police officers were very kind, and they stood just making sure that nothing happened to the church, and thank God nothing ever did come to that. But they tried to do that at St. Hyacinth in Chicago as well.
Yeah, there was a couple of years ago, it wasn't a Catholic church, it was I think it was a Baptist church in Texas. Somebody brought a shotgun.
Yes.
2 mistakes. 1, you're in church. 2, you're in Texas. So he got 1 shot off before somebody in the congregation was able to take him out. But it's like, everybody in Texas has a gun.
Yeah.
So what were you thinking? But it was pretty incredible. This older guy who was in his 60s or 70s was able to shoot the guy while he was running from across the church. So it's
amazing.
But you can see he gets one shot off. He got 2 shots off. It was weird. You see the security. These 2 guys walk in. Somebody points to somebody. He shoots the guy they pointed to, and then he shoots the guy who did the pointing, and then he starts running. But before he could hurt anybody else, like 5 people stood up with guns. I'm like, of all the states you could have done this in.
God, it was Texas.
Yeah.
You know, got him.
The gun-loving state of the country. It's pretty sad though. They've
Yeah.
talked about having people in churches with guns to protect people. And things.
Unfortunately, when we were still down in the city, it got very chaotic, and it was just every day, it was such an anxiety, even to go to church, and because there's just so many people that are against the Catholic Church, especially now, when the statues were being taken down.
Oh, I know. That was like they were ripping down statues of people they didn't even know.
Yeah.
And you have no reason, and especially like in California, I forget which saint it is. Basically, the saint of California.
Saint Juan Junipero?
I think so.
Yeah.
And he owned slaves or something, or he hurt the indigenous, or is what the rumor was. But you have any idea what good he did? It's like
Yeah, I know.
And
They
then-
did nothing.
they're ripping down Christopher Columbus statues because he enslaved people. Like, no, he didn't. Do you know the story of Christopher Columbus? Because they sent him back to Spain in jail because he tried to stop the slaving of indigenous people.
Yeah, well, what's crazy is that they did remove him in Chicago. The mayor went in the middle of the night.
Yeah.
And
When I was
quietly.
sleeping.
Yeah,
Oh, it took like the Christopher Columbus statue down.
Yeah.
That doesn't. That's, yeah.
yeah, they did. They sure did. And we had like little messages that they were saying, because it was just nuts. It was chaotic. We had to leave. Like, this was throughout the whole May, June, July.
Mhm.
It was just horrible. It just got out of hand. But during that time, we were receiving word that we had to be careful because they were going to start attacking white Jesus, white Mary. So meaning that they wanted to attack the statues because Jesus is not white and this and that and the European.
Right. Well, I mean, he wasn't, but
Right, but because they feel that the statues represent him as white, those
Yeah.
statues should not even be there. So we had to be careful. There was a video where I saw there was this young man that passed by, and in this area, I don't know what area it was, I think it was in front of a church, because they had the Virgin Mary there where you can go and you can just sit down and pray. And the young man passed by and he pushed the Blessed Mother's statue off of it, and she fell on the ground. And hours later, another young man, I guess he looked like he was coming from work or something, probably like a hard laborer or construction worker. He came and he saw, the Blessed Mother on the floor, and he's looking at her. And then it takes him about 2 seconds of him looking at her, and then he looks around, he starts fixing the things, and he picks her up so gently, as if, I don't know, the video seems, it doesn't really have audio, but it kind of seems like as if she was telling him, pick me up, put me here. This is where you need to put me. Because he put her in a different spot, but just good enough so that she wouldn't be able to get knocked over.
no, Jesus was born in Israel. He was Middle Eastern.
Exactly. That's what we said.
But I mean, even when Bishop Braxton was our bishop a couple of years ago for his birthday, they presented him with a really cool picture of a black nativity scene. And I thought it was pretty incredible. And they put it in the church, hanging out with a couple other different nativity scenes. Like, it doesn't matter whether he was black, white, or whatever, it's how people perceive him, and they follow his teachings. All that matters. It's the color of his skin has no relevance to whatsoever. Otherwise, it would have been in the Bible. And there is 0 physical descriptions of Jesus in the Bible. So he might not even have a beard, but Jewish rabbis did. So that's why we assume he did. some really dark-skinned people in Israel, there's some really light-skinned people in Israel. It's a
Exactly.
massive difference
It's the
over
middle,
there.
right, we have a diverse, it's just like all of being, it's again, it's the God's will. This is how we are made.
Mhm.
We can't be ashamed because we are certain he's lighter than me. I can't make him feel ashamed of that
Right.
or see that he is more privileged when at the end we all have our lives that are given to us for a reason. And God never leaves us alone. So regardless of how his life was compared to mine, we're both here. We're both here. So.
It's as they say, it's not where you're from, it's where you're at.
Mhm.
So,
We just pray.
I heard this story about the rosary from a priest. There's a YouTube channel, Sensus Fidelium. It's pretty good. A lot of good homilies and lectures from priests, and I think it's mainly priests. I don't know if there's too many lay people or deacons even, but there's a homily given that the night that Ted Bundy was out for his last killing before he was caught, that was a college campus one, I believe, and he ended up killing a few women there, but the last one that he went into, he told I guess the reporter, this is a bit of a lengthy story, but he entered the room and something would not allow him to go in, so he ended up leaving. Come to find out that the girl that was sleeping in the room had her rosary in her hand. And the story goes that she told her mother before she went to college that she prayed every night. She didn't pray it that night, so she fell asleep with it in her hands. When she found out what happened, the aftermath, she said she wanted to talk to a priest because that's the only person she would talk to. Come to find out that I think a few days before his execution, Ted Bundy, he has to talk to a priest, not for confession, but just to talk to one. And it came to be that it was the same priest as
Oh,
the
wow.
woman. And he told the priest, and I quote, something wouldn't allow me in that room. I don't know what it was. And the priest said, I know what it was, because I talked to that woman, and it was the rosary. Very great miracles come from the rosary too. It's amazing.
Well, and we're talking about the apparitions of Mary. Every single one, she says to pray the rosary.
Yes,
Yes.
that is true.
Like, that's the one consistent theme that Mary has always had, is pray the rosary.
Yeah, I've heard it's the greatest weapon that we can have in our arsenal.
That's why Dominicans, they have the rosary on their habit, and it's always on their left side because the sword from knights was always held there.
Oh yeah.
So that's their weapon. So.
Yeah, this is primary weapon, then your sword is secondary. Yeah.
Well, wasn't there another one where they showed that where they found the letters, where they showed that the exorcists, like this is what the priest used for exorcists and how he came to be too.
I did hear a story about an exorcist with a rosary.
Yeah.
Like he put a rosary around a girl's neck who was trying to be exorcised, and it was hurting the girl, so he took it off. And then that night he was praying the rosary, and he felt that evil spirit try to attack him. And he continued to pray the rosary, and it didn't come anywhere near it. So the next day he used the rosary, put it back around the girl's neck, and was able to successfully heal her.
Wow. Wow, that's amazing. No, there was one that we were at the youth home that we were watching.
Letters.
Yeah, that they found the letters that some of the priests would write, and they had translated it. We just talked about it this weekend, I think. So that's okay.
I don't. It's ringing a bell. I just can't.
Because I really don't know. I can't remember it really well.
It rings a bell. It rings a bell. I just.
But
I'm
they
just trying to
used
remember
it,
where-
the rosary. The rosary is used for exorcism and things like that. It's the greatest weapon actually for it to go ahead. And there was proof of that, but I just can't remember all the details right now. But there was one.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. It's just not coming to me. I remember.
There was some letters that were found, and they were able to translate some. They weren't. You just please spoke on it. You told me about it, and then we looked it up.
Yeah.
But we were looking at also on a different subject too, I was thinking, so with the saints, because I went to the, what was it, the website to choose a saint.
Mm-hmm.
For confirmation.
Yes, because I was trying to look at Saint Benedict for my son. Like, how would I look about all the saints and things like
That's just, you have to do Google searches and
that?
that's,
Google is fine?
oh yeah.
Oh, okay.
You can find a lot of different things on the saints. And it's, sometimes you want to find something that's personal to you. Like I grew up in the military. My dad was in the Air Force and I lived at Scott Air Force Base. So when I picked my saint, I specifically said, who was the saint of the military? The first thing that popped up was St. Michael. I'm like, man, he's an angel. So I didn't necessarily want to pick him. But then the second one was St. Sebastian, who was a military officer in the Roman military, who converted and then helped Christians who were about to be martyred, helped some of them escape and converted some other people. And I didn't learn this until a couple of years ago, but when he was found out, they tried to kill him. They tied him up to a post and had his own soldiers shoot him full of arrows, which is insane. The emperor assumed he died, which he did not. He made a full recovery, and he stormed into the emperor's palace, proclaiming Jesus and all that stuff, and the emperor froze, thinking he was seeing a ghost, because he assumed Sebastian died.
Wow.
But they arrested him then, and they did end up killing him then. But so yeah, Saint Sebastian. He's mostly known for athletes because he survived the chest full of arrows. But yeah, he's also another saint of the military, so that's why I picked him. And my daughter last year, where she did it, she is fascinated with France and French culture. So she picked Joan of Arc as her saint because she's the saint of France. So sometimes you just got to search, you know, here soon we might have the saint of the internet. A guy, he was actually a teenager when he was martyred or died. I think he might become beatified and become the recognized saint of the internet.
Is that the 14-year-old?
I think, yeah, the teenager, he made a website of all the Eucharistic miracles and was hugely devoutly Catholic. And I don't know the story of his death, of why he died so young, but I don't know if he's been recognized as a saint or if he's just blessed or not. But
Yeah, I think he died because what was something with his blood?
I think it was a blood,
Like
chronic blood illness.
Oh wow.
Yeah. Yeah, I know that, and the Eucharistic miracles are fascinating. It blows my mind. Like, I know there's tons, but the one that I know of most recently from Poland, where the priest is administering the Eucharist, and he was getting it to a sister where it dropped on the floor, and they removed it from the floor and put it in water to dissolve. And then when the nun came back, or the priest, I'm not sure who, someone came to go check on it, and it started turning the water red, and there was like red in the middle of the Eucharist, and scientists have studied it and analyzed it, and those are actually heart muscle tissues that they were actually studying in the Eucharist. So
it's also incredible because, you know, there's lots of those different.
yeah,
They've done the blood type on every single. They all match. I think it's like AB positive, the same
Wow.
blood type on every single one.
wow.
On the Eucharist?
Any kind of like blood Eucharist miracle, any kind of trace of blood. When they've done tests on it, they've all matched the same blood type, which is pretty incredible.
That's
Wow.
insane. Wow, I didn't know that.
I didn't know that either.
Wow.
That's kind of hard to fake, you know.
Yes, exactly. It is hard to fake. There's nothing, again, it's like, what more do we need to believe to have the faith that is given to us? As children, we know when we do, even if our parents never told us about a certain thing, if we do it, we know it, and it is bad, we know, we feel it. It's like a feeling like, I don't think I should have done that. Well, where would that come from? So yeah, it's amazing. Any question? So with that, how would we use that with the rosary?
You go around each decade. There's 10 little things. So you say the 10 Hail Marys, It doesn't have, you know, the first 3 beads, so you'd have to kind of do that yourself, but it's just a cool thing to keep in your pocket, so you always have
Okay.
a rosary with you. Yeah, you can either keep it in a pocket or a purse or a backpack, but you always have it. I have one of these in my Bible cupboard, so I always have a rosary with my Bible. I have this little pouch that I use with my rosary. It's actually a Zippo lighter pouch. 'Cause I wanted a small pouch to put on my belt, so I can always have it there. I used to carry it loose on my belt, and that's one reason why I could break them, because I'd walk by a chair and they'd get hooked on the chair and snag. And the last one actually broke at the church. I was like, really? They got it hooked on the railing at the stairs, and I was like, why is this gonna break at a church? Well, that's why I got this, and I keep it on my belt, so I always have my rosary with me.
Thank you.
That's a nice gift.
I had one of these before too, and it kind of like, the more I used it, the silver peels off or fades off and turned into like a gold color. So I was like, yeah, it's kind of cool.
Yeah. Alright, Joe.
Oh, well, thank you, Robert. It was
You're welcome.
great class. Thank you.
Yeah, I completely forgot that I was doing the class today until Sister Tess reminded me on Tuesday. I'm like, oh, I forgot about that.
Oh, we thank you again for giving us a lot of
Oh, you're welcome.
awesome stories. Amazing. AB.